You don't have to look around at the religions of the world for very long before you realise that they have widely different ideas about God. Who or what is the world's supreme power? Some of them say that God is just the name for a blind force, a power that runs through everything, but not somebody you can talk to. Others say no, God is a person, or maybe more than one, or maybe even a crowd. In Hinduism, for example, it's estimated that there are something like 3 million different gods. Yet many Hindus claim that they are all just aspects of one great impersonal, shadowy reality that lies behind them all. Confusing. So let's look at some of the options. Suppose God was just a force, like electricity or the wind. Many people think that this is somehow a more sophisticated, modern, scientific way to regard God. After all, we've discovered basic forces in the natural world that make things work. Electromagnetism, gravity, the weak and strong nuclear forces. Why wouldn't God be something like that? But hang on a minute. Is that really such a great idea? The highest form of life we know in the universe, humans, is personal. If we ever contact an outer space civilization, we automatically assume they'll be persons too, whom we can communicate and bargain with. Why wouldn't we expect the greatest life force in all the universe to have personality too? Maybe it just feels safer thinking that God is a force of some kind, because if that's all he is, we can treat him like any other scientific phenomena, study him, understand him, and then use him. It's far scarier dealing with a God who has a mind, thoughts, ideas, and a speaking voice. Okay then, is there just one God, out there on his own, completely different from us? Or are there loads of gods? If there's only one, the question is, how can we ever know anything about him or establish a meaningful relationship with him? Orthodox Muslims believe Allah is all compassionate and has great mercy for humans, but he's on a level by himself, and to talk about God loving you or about having a relationship with you is blasphemy. You'll never know till the day of judgment whether you have made it into paradise. Meanwhile, Allah is saying nothing. And we do long to know God. It's a human thing. Right through the Old Testament, for instance, you find people wishing they could see God, know God, come to stand before God, but they never do. The best thing they get is an occasional angel. And that's not the same thing. Are there lots of gods then? That just makes life pretty chaotic. If you read the great epic poem, the Aeneid, by the Roman poet Virgil, you get a glimpse of what it's like when you have a heaven made up of lots of different warring deities. Venus is on the side of the hero, because he's family, but Juno hates him and keeps trying to get neutral gods like Neptune to arrange disasters to kill him. When Jupiter finds out, he isn't best pleased, and so it goes on, just like Coronation Street. It must be pretty insecure living in a world where you believe there are lots of gods and some of them are for you, but others are hostile. How can a human survive? If there are deities whom you can offend without realising it, you'd better sacrifice to the lot just to be safe. Result, a pretty busy religious life and no sense of security in your life at all. No, none of these options are ultimately satisfactory, but there's one other possibility. Suppose that the one God was actually 3 persons. We don't know how that would work, but then if you're talking about a God far greater than you wouldn't expect to understand him completely, would you? And suppose that these 3 persons had lived in a relationship of perfect love and unity eternally before the universe even came to be. And suppose that this God made you expressly so that you could share that love relationship with him and other humans too. And suppose that after we'd messed all of that up, one of those 3 persons came to Earth and lived among us. He'd show us in human form a picture of what God is all about. He'd make a bridge connecting us back to our Creator. And he'd make it possible for us to have a deeper, closer, more satisfying relationship with the one true God than we ever could have dreamed possible. That's what Christianity is claiming. It's often been said that the Christian view of God stands at the meeting point of East and West. Eastern religions typically see God as a force, transcendent and all-powerful, but not really personal. Western religions typically have had lots of little gods who are just souped-up humans who live on Mount Olympus or Valhalla or somewhere and misbehave, sleep with one another's wives and get drunk and trick one another. Very personal, but not very transcendent. And only in Christianity do you find a God who is both transcendently powerful, big enough to have created the whole show, yet personal enough to care about the death of an insignificant sparrow when it falls to the ground. Best idea yet, or too crazy to be true? Let's see what you think.